entitled Leading Through Resistance to Become Resilient in a Post-Racial Society, Black Women Excellence. I am Assata Thomas. I am the director at the Institute for Community Justice, your host and the sponsor for today's webinar. It is not coincidental that today is the last day of Women's History Month. And although it's the last day on the calendar, we celebrate Black Women's History Month 365 a year because we're Black and we're women and we are indeed amazing. Although women, and in particular, African American women have come a long way, it has not been without force, without insistence, without persistence, and without pressure. The dialogue today will be transparent, it will be enlightening, but most of all, it will be empowering. It was designed to have an honest conversation about the resilience necessary in both becoming and remaining a Black woman in leadership. It was designed to support other Black and brown women in leadership in a rising to all of our greatness. I have gathered together at one time, y'all, one time, three amazing, dope, if you know me, that's my word, dope, powerful women in their own right. I'm not a woman who plays patty cake, and you will see that the women that I have chosen, who are my friends and colleagues, both on and off the panel, are also not women who play patty cake. They are women who have taken the call of leadership and boldness with tenacity and the fearlessness that is necessary to continue to arise to their call and their purpose in leadership. We are about standing up to the call of leadership, and we are empowering other women. Combined, this panel brings diverse education, experience, yet the same resilience necessary to carry on. It was important to me that this panel was moderated by African American male who genuinely and authentically works in allyship with Black women. One who is not afraid to speak up with us on racism and with us against sexism. Dr. Gary Knight is the person who I've chosen to moderate, and he will introduce the three amazing women that will be joining me today. Remember, this is a noon power hour. You bring the food for your belly, and we'll bring the nourishment for your soul. Dr. Gary Knight, as Chief Equity Officer, brings over 25 years of professional experience. Previous to his career in education, Dr. Knight spent many years in the managed healthcare sector, building relationships with clients and managing staff to be their best selves. Over the years, he has acquired the ability to effectively interact with individuals at all levels of an organization and industries to support in the application of equity principles throughout their organization. Dr. Knight strives to use his plethora of professional experiences to support leaders and organizations across the nation. Dr. Knight has a rich and varied educational background. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Management from Hampton University and advanced degrees from Long Island University. He holds certificates from Princeton University in Leadership and Education, the Seedlings Institute for School Leaders at the Yale School for Emotional Intelligence. Dr. Knight is a certified affiliate for Courageous Conversations About Race with Pacific Educational Group. He's a member of the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development, a certified trainer with the American Federation of Teachers, and a certified principal mentor in the state of New Jersey. Dr. Knight is currently working in the role of Assistant Superintendent, Senior Director for Equity and Strategic Initiatives. And before I turn it over to Dr. Knight, I am going to begin with a quote from Toni Morrison. The function of racism is distraction. It keeps you from doing your work. It keeps you explaining over and over again your reason for being. Somebody says you have no language, and so you spend 20 years proving that you do. None of that is necessary. There will always be one more thing. Toni Morrison, and I turn it over to our moderator, Dr. Gary Knight. Sit back and enjoy it. It's going to be some good stuff.
Thank you, Assata Thomas.
Mhm.
And let me start by being very intentional to say how privileged and what an honor it is to be amongst you queens this morning.
Thank
I am
you.
here to soak it all up. I'm here to learn from you. I am here to help elevate your purpose-driven selves. And to further enhance the opening by Assata Thomas, I too have a quote that I think is appropriate for today's women of Black excellence, in particular, Black women, Black queens of excellence. There's power in allowing yourself to be known and heard, in owning your unique story, in using your authentic voice. And there's grace in being willing to know and hear others. Michelle Obama, former First Lady of the United States. And I thought that because oftentimes the Black queens are overlooked and undervalued, not today. I will begin by introducing our first panelist, Angeline Dean. Angeline is a PhD candidate at Rowan University. She serves as an activist, organizer, adjunct professor who examines colonial plantation frameworks, both economic and pedagogical, their existence in today's systems, and how their intentional and predatory nature foster new methods of enslavement. Her oppression plantation paradigm model outlines components of the slave creation process via whiteness and the internalized racism. Her primary focus is the interconnectionality of systems and the political economy of Black and Brown bodies. Her goal is to train others on racialized systems operations, heal communities of color, and dismantle whiteness, coupled with the hegemonic structures that exacerbate historical trauma while hiding behind things such as diversity, justice, and equality. Angeline Dean. Just wave for the folks,
Thank
Angeline.
you and good morning, Dr. Knight, and good morning, Queens. Thank you, King.
You are welcome. Our next queen, Dr. Jacqueline Bailey Davis. Dr. Jacqueline Bailey Davis is a native Philadelphian who earned a Doctorate of Public Administration degree from Westchester University while also serving as a full-time state inspector with the Philadelphia Police Department. During her 24-year tenure in the Philadelphia Police Department, Dr. Davis rose through the ranks while working patrols, investigations, and the training bureaus. In 2015, former Philadelphia Police Commissioner Charles H. Ramsey appointed Dr. Bailey to oversee the Department of Justice Collaborative Reform Initiative, which garnered national praise in police reform. In addition to her police duties, Dr. Davis is simultaneously serving a combined 12 years in academia as an adjunct and criminal justice coordinator and behavioral health administrator at Alvernia University. Dr. Davis has been the recipient of a multitude of awards, too many to name today, and is a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated. We have Keir Bradford-Grey, Chief Defender.
Okay.
Shoot.
Let that sink in for a second.
Yes.
Shoot.
That speaks for itself. However, I'm going to go a little bit further. Since becoming chief defender of the Defender Association of Philadelphia in 2015, Keir Bradford-Grey has been the city's leading advocate for comprehensive justice system reform. Ms. Bradford-Grey believes that the defender must not only provide clients with first-rate legal counsel, but also champion innovative programs and partnerships that give communities the power to ensure positive outcomes for those who encounter our justice system. Ms. Bradford-Grey has spent the last 5 years spearheading initiatives to provide clients access to services. Ms. Bradford-Grey's successful defense of a high-profile homicide client in 2019 has been a catalyst for conversations about the importance of having well-resourced public defenders and the assumptions that our justice system too often makes about people of color. Ms. Bradford-Grey serves on a number of boards and associations, including the president of the American Council of Chief Defenders, a large subchapter of the National Legal Aid and Defender Association dedicated to securing a fair justice system and ensuring high quality legal representation for people facing loss of life, freedom, or family. Chief Defender.
Okay.
Thank you. So wonderful to be here with this all-star panel. So thank you so much for that introduction.
You are more than welcome. And last, but certainly not the least, Assata Thomas. Assata Thomas is director of the Institute for Community Justice, a program of Philadelphia Fight. As director, Ms. Thomas oversees the effective execution of ICJ's aims to provide support, education, and advocacy for individuals, families, and communities who are impacted by mass incarceration. Ms. Thomas has over 2 decades of experience in the social services field, which commenced with her training as a corrections officer with the state of New Jersey, during which time she held the distinction of having been the first female president of the Corrections Officers Training Academy of New Jersey. Ms. Thomas received a BA degree with honors in African American and Urban Studies with a minor in sociology. She thereafter was director of a Camden-based reentry program. Ms. Thomas is a passionate advocate on behalf of those affected by mass incarceration, and moreover, having lived through the experience of a felony conviction, she is uniquely qualified to speak with credibility and authority to the issues facing all who have been affected by the system. Ms. Thomas' personal trajectory and hard-won successes fuel her passion to help others, and they offer a concrete and inspiring example for others that despite the odds, success is possible. Assata Thomas.
Thank you so much. We could stop right there. I feel so filled up just being on this panel with you all, hearing your bios. I'm like, let's get it, Queens. Thank you so much, Dr. Knight. We are ready.
Whew, what a blessing to be amongst. All right, so we will start off with 6 questions that I will ask that will pertain to each of you. Each panelist will have up to 2 minutes to respond. And then I will have individual questions that I will ask individual panelists. So the first of the 6 questions is, ladies, there is an African proverb which states, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. You have all gone far in your lives. Can you briefly describe how 1 or 2 women have assisted you in going far? And we'll begin with Dr. Davis.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. For contextual purposes, I would like to add, not only was I born and raised in the city of Philadelphia, but I also lived in the city's most violent, dangerous, poorest, and most isolated housing projects, as it were, Pastor Young homes. And as I'm sitting here today, I can still visualize growing up in the 1970s and where the racial tension was extremely high and racism was truly overt. And I can remember as a child running home from school, being chased from school as well as the public pool by white males carrying baseball bats and metal pipes. And while the men in my family were certainly providers, I must say that my maternal grandmother and mother were definitely the protectors. So with them, I was able to not only go far, but just to even exist, just to be able to live. And I would be remiss if I did not mention the educators in my life, From K through 12, I attended the Philadelphia public school system, and I had some of the most amazing teachers from all walks of life, but in particular at the University of Cincinnati, when I met Dr. Karen Edwards, a Black female sister who was a full-time tenure-track psychology professor. She taught me about myself, my culture, my history, and my creativity, as well as Dr. Judith A.W. Thomas from Lincoln University, full professor in education and the dean of education. And I will tell you, these ladies, along with my family members, have not only taught me to go far, but to go beyond the expectations of myself, my family, and those who believe that I'm supposed to be a part of the underclass. So I thank them. I'm forever indebted to them. And I will say, I am truly the poster child for the statement of it takes a village to raise a child. So I salute those women.
Thank you, Dr. Davis.
Thank you.
I'll go to Keir next, please.
Man, that was powerful. I can say this, and I have similar experiences. Coming up in the legal profession, you see a lot of, it's very traditionally white and very traditionally male. And so unfortunately, I didn't have a Black woman that helped me move through the ranks in this profession. They were, in fact, men. But I will say, while they helped me with my legal skills and acumen to get to where I am in terms of substantive qualities for the job, in terms of my mental ability to push past a lot of the challenges, the feelings of devaluation, the feelings that I had to be so much better than in order to be looked at, I have to turn to my inner village as well. And that started with my mother, who was the wind beneath my wings. And not everyone has a close relationship with their moms, and I know I'm fortunate enough to have that, but those who don't have someone, an aunt, a sister or a sister, whatever those people are, the ones that are going to tell you the truth, but say it with love and make sure that they build you up while they're making sure they're correcting the things that you need corrected is critical. But I will also give credit to a woman that I met at an HBCU, at my HBCU, Albany State University, Dr. Neota Tucker. Before I went to HBCU, I had never had a Black teacher, never. Growing up in Boston, Massachusetts, I had never seen a Black teacher in my era, in my schools. And so I came into Albany State and met this sharp woman. She had the sharpest afro. She was just always put together, and she was a lawyer. And I had always dreamed of being a lawyer, but never really thought that it was attainable for me because I didn't have the pedigree. I didn't know any lawyers. My mother's family friends were not lawyers. And I remember going up to her saying, you know, Dr. Tucker, I've always wanted to be a lawyer. How do I become a lawyer? And she said, honey, just apply. And those words, that sentence right there set me on the path of where I am today. And she said it so effortlessly, like, you got it, just put it on paper. And I can never thank her enough. I don't think I've ever thanked her to her face, because I never really realized how powerful or impactful that was for me, to know that you don't have to think that you need something special, just do it. So that's my discussion today about the women in my life that helped me get to where I am.
Thank you, Chief Defender. And thank you for elevating or raising how much representation matters, right? Because you see it, you can believe it, you can be it. So thank you. Assata Thomas, would you like to respond?
Absolutely. As when the question first was presented, I already knew my answer. And the answer for me, for the person who still is the wind beneath my wings, is my mother, Joyce Russell. And I am so much the woman I am because of her. I am the child of Jamaican immigrants. And so growing up, as Jackie said, in the 70s, it was a bit more difficult for us American, or what we term Jamaican children, because it wasn't cool at that time to be eat differently and all of these different things that we did. And I remember my mother, when I got to be about 16 or 17, and smelling myself And she would say to me, I'm your last best friend. And I will never forget those words. As time evolved and people dropped off, and all these people that I got you, we gonna ride till the wheels fell off, and the wheels fell off and they were gone. She remains to this day the last woman standing. And as I recall, when I was going through my own process with the criminal justice system, it is she primarily who stood by me and held me down, and my children, all those things. And it's on her shoulders that I stand, and on her mother's shoulders that I stand, who grew up very poor in Jamaica. My grandmother had a fourth grade education, but was very much involved in the political process in Jamaica. And indeed, there's a bridge named after her that still stands today, the Enid Burke Bridge, wherein she fought to have a bridge built so that poor people could sell their goods, because it would flood and they couldn't get to go sell their wares when it rained really badly. And she advocated, her advocacy and activism caused a build to be bridged. So it's on those shoulders that I stand today. And the continuation of that is women like these who are on my team. I think it was Chief Defender that said, it is the sister circle that you need to have that keeps you, lets you know when your panties are showing, and keeps you on point, and also provides a safe space for you to just be. But I would say the primary answer is my mother and my grandmother.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving us a glimpse into that family structure and how it really helped to develop the woman that you are, the queen that you are today. Thank you for that. Angeline. Right.
Yes. So I would have to say, like the Chief Defender, I didn't have any female educators of color. I remember only having one Black man who was also phenomenal. But if I had to look in my own family, without a doubt, it would be my mother and my grandmothers. Having the best of both worlds. Having a white grandmother and a Black grandmother showed me the differences of how treatment occurs, right? And having to deal with some of the backlash of having that, and having to choose, so to speak, which wasn't hard for me because I didn't have to choose. People chose for me. I was Black and I was happy to be Black. So I was grateful for an amazing set of grandmothers, but my one who attended everything that I had, and then a Black woman who said, baby, you can be anything you want to be. And not only did she say it, she sought to make sure that I had the resources to be and to do and to understand. And it was her who showed me that you take care of your community, you build your village. And she didn't show me by her words, she showed me by her actions. And then having a mother who said, at all times too, you stand for something or you fall for anything. And having a mother that said, you're going to travel, right? And having the ability and being blessed to be able to travel outside of my area so that I would also be able to understand life and not be confined to my surroundings. And so then I would just also say my aunts, same thing. My aunts, the same thing. Backing me, most of them backing me. Another one saying, come on, we going to Africa, because now you're not only going to see around here, you're going on the other side of the world as well. So having powerful women like that in my space to show me not only a national view, but a global view as well. And to understand that I can be anything and to stand for what I believe.
Thank you, Angeline, and providing you access that society wants to deny you of. They were intentional to make sure that you were given the access. Thank you for sharing. Thank you to both the Chief Defender and Angeline for also shouting out the Black brothers that have been behind the scenes as well, helping to support and nurture and create this phenomenal woman that you are today. So thank you, I appreciate that. All right, we're gonna move on to the second question. Can you share some insight on how you have navigated through resistance to become resilient in your life endeavors? This time we'll start with Chief Defender.
Sorry about that. I had to get my, so this is a very interesting question because I think Black women are subjected to the dueling forces of white supremacy and patriarchy in just about every facet of our lives. And with that in mind, we go into these roles and jobs, understanding that our experiences mirrors those who are generally marginalized and devalued. And so that's why these things mean so much to us, to build those villages. What I do to kind of overcome some of the micro management of my leadership, some of the aggressive, and I'm not going to say microaggressive, the aggressive, overt patriarchy, racism, and supremacy really comes back to caring for myself through my village. It's really as simple as that. When we have these villages where we can validate each other's experiences, we can be honest and open and not looked at as weak or looked at as being the victim because we're talking about these things honestly, then that allows us to get it off of us and keep moving and understand that we're shouldering basically history or a legacy that we want to make sure that other Black women have the opportunity to get in as well, because we still don't own or have power and control of all of the upward mobile positions. And we're still fighting to get more percentages in these leadership positions. And while, yes, we're being featured places, it's a very small amount of us in the positions where we need to be. Because I know for sure when Black women get that opportunity, they take it, they take advantage of it, and they actually make change because of what's in them. All the things that we've heard about who was most instrumental in our lives, we heard about mothers and grandmothers that basically from birth or from childhood, let us know what the critical role is for us. And that is to build your village, build people up, strengthen the people around you so that you're stronger in numbers and you go, like you said in your opening, go a lot farther. So it just, these types of things, these sisters on this call are important and critical to people like me, because if I don't have that outlet, it is really hard for me to tackle some of the things I do every single day.
Wow, thank you for that, Chief Defender. And something stuck out for me as you were talking, and you said being featured, right? And for me, being featured signifies just a moment in time, right? So how do we get to a point where there is consistency, that it's no longer a feature, but a thing, a part of, a way of being? So thank you, thank you, thank you. I will ask Angeline to chime in.
Sure. So the resistance and the resilience, I love it. So again, Dr. Gary, I'm gonna give you another brother. So, right, I learned my resistance and my resilience from my dad, right? He said, you gonna study these Black history encyclopedias and don't get cute because I'm gonna quiz you on it, right? Don't act like you read it so you can go run and do whatever. And I'm going to train you, help be instrumental and intentional in training you, because this is the things that the schools will never tell you about, and I won't make it their responsibility. And so with him doing that, it gave me an opportunity to learn about the resistance movements. It gave me an opportunity to learn about resilience. But, you know, so oftentimes we're asked, how are you so resilient as Black women? And sometimes, I mean, I think to myself, why aren't we asking about the policies that force us to be resilient? The historical trauma that has forced us to be resilient, right? We come from greatness. If our ancestors can endure enslavement for 400 and something years, the stock is in us. So that's how we go ahead and we push forward. And Chief Gray said, when Black women get the opportunity, you know, we make the change. But when we get the opportunity, I want to add to that, we shift the paradigm, right? We just don't even make the change. We bring in all types of things from everywhere because of the creativeness of our ancestors. And that, as she stated, that is what's in us. And so, and again, I was thinking the same thing, building your village, right? Understanding what do you need in your village? Who do you need in your village to help push forward in order to make change and to even be able to substantiate your own mental health, right? We need that village just for our own emotional and mental health as well. So that's how I would respond.
All right, thank you, Angeline. Assata.
Yes. So I'm just enjoying the conversation. I have to go back to read what the question was again. And so how I navigate through resistance to become resilient is, I'm going to piggyback off of Chief Defender Bradford-Grey and Angeline, in that it is really incumbent upon um, my village of mostly women, where I'm able to be, I'm going to repeat what Keir said, able to show signs of vulnerability, and it's not considered anything else. It's just like there's this place of empathy, this place where I can go and say, this is what's happening, and of shared experiences where I can leave that space or leave that call or leave that whatever, feeling empowered and feeling known that I'm okay. And I also would like to say that though I do have, my village also consists of some men who I can also very much call and say, listen, this happened to me today. I had an experience with sexism today. Can you talk to me about this? And that is so important as well, because I'm getting to hear that piece of it, but also being validated that I'm not crazy, that this is actually happening. And I have been pushing away from this word microaggressions, because I feel like they're becoming, if not have always been, macro. And so I think it's just that we make this, we have to make this decision every day on what battle we're going to fight. What level are we going to choose today? What is more important today? And that's every day when we wake up. And I'm sure I can speak for every woman on this panel, what decision we're going to make today in terms of what macro aggression to fight. And so in order to do that, that takes resilience, and that comes with taking care of myself, and that comes in different forms. There are times when I just don't have the energy or the strength to do it. And so I call people who do have the energy and strength at that moment, and they keep my hands lifted up. So I keep winning. And then they're like, all right, girl, you good, keep it moving. And so it's just this place of safety and sanctity that I have found with some women, that I'm able to get that power surge, if you will, to keep on moving.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for that. Dr. Davis, let me just repeat the question, just to make sure that, we're still on this. Can you share some insights on how you have navigated through resistance to become resilient in your life endeavors?
Well, Dr. Knight, let's be clear. The navigating still exists. It hasn't stopped. So it
Absolutely.
still exists.
That's right.
And despite levels of education, experience, expertise, philanthropy, service to others, your community, it exists. And I can tell you that the unwarranted resistance is real. And quite frankly, you would think, other than my one experience as a child growing up in Pass Young Projects, that was the only time I really dealt with resistance until I became a police officer. And I will say a shout out to the Kings, my father, Martin Edwards, who's a Marine veteran. And I thank God for my daddy, and I thank God for my mentor, Chief Clarence Williams, because for the past 32 years, Chief Williams has mentored me throughout my life and my career, but in particular, navigating through a male-dominated profession of law enforcement. And so the insight that I have for individual women, for other women who are going through the same things, would be one, self-awareness. You really have to know what your triggers are, because the bottom line is, when you deal with that resistance, you have to respond. And the way you respond can actually exacerbate your situation. Sometimes people cannot deal with this resistance, whether the resistance is in the form of white supremacy, or it's sobriquet racism, white rage, or any other isms. You really have to be careful how you respond. Also, health and wellness checks. I understand that research tells us that stress via racism can kill you. So I'm quite aware of that. And so I kind of check on myself to make sure that I'm okay. Sometimes we focus on these big stressors or these big events. And I tell other women, you have to be cautious of the infinitesimal incremental stressors as well. These small stressors that creep up on you, they constantly make these little deposits. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, it becomes very costly when they add up. Also, having that trusted confidant and that mentor really does help. And for me, I lean on my faith first and foremost. I really do have to lean on my faith. I retreat back to my word when I just feel such despair, like, Lord Jesus, why me? Why am I going through this? So I use my word. But I'll be honest with you, I've probably had the most difficult time dealing with resistance within the past 2 to 3 years, probably actually the past 2 years, professionally speaking. So for me, I've had this relentless pursuit with economic self-defense. And I can pretty much tell you that one of the things that will separate individual women from being able to be resistant is you have to have that financial intelligence as well to be able to back up what you need to do. There's no feeling like being financially free. And I'm not saying that I'm rich by no stretch of the imagination, but I feel a little more confident when I have a couple more dollars in the bank and one day just be able to say, you know what, I'm really tired of this. I gotta go, and then do some other things. So for me, I'm working relentlessly for that economic self-defense and the Black generational wealth with my nieces and nephews. And lastly, I will tell you with resistance, there are 4 elements that you really have to think about. The resistance is there to cause harm. The harm is there to hurt you. When you're hurt, you still have to handle yourself in this situation, but you also have to heal. You also have to heal. So that's pretty much my insight.
Thank you. Wow. And as you were talking, as well as Angeline, I heard a pattern in terms of health and wellness and the importance of social emotional health, which ties perfectly into the next question that I'm going to pose to the panel. In 2018, Julia Carpenter from CNN Money wrote an article entitled "The Emotional Tax Afflicting Women of Color at Work." The article stated that women of color experience an invisible weight that includes exclusion, microaggressions again, and murmured insults. What advice do you have for other women who may experience this invisible weight and other types of resistance? Angeline, we'll start with you this time.
Had a feeling you were going there. Wow, that's a loaded one. Um, whew, even just hearing the question is like a weight, right? Because I'm sure all of us deal with this every day. Again, for me, having just recently coming up out of dealing with some of these things, again, it was really important for me to build a village. And it was also important for me to build other advocates who could say, you know, why isn't Angeline at this meeting? Why isn't Angeline at this phone call? And as Assata said, these micro, I love that because they are macro. There is nothing micro about them. And so for me, it was that was my strength right there in doing that, having other people work alongside of me and work on behalf of me. I wanted to also say that rest was also a form of resistance because I also had to know when I needed to take it down, right? When I needed to step away from this just so that I could breathe, because at times these insults, they come so readily that it's just like, woof, they almost knock you out and knock you down. So for me, again, I think, Dr. Knight, it all went back for me to building the village. And honestly, I had to also really begin to deal with white women as well, right? In this, like you talk about justice, but what part are you either going to help me or you going to harm me? One or the other, right? There is no middle ground for this. And so having to watch that, now I had to make sure that white women were pushing my agenda and pushing for me not to be excluded, and in these tables. So again, it all went back to organizing. It all went back to understanding which fights I needed to fight at that time, and you know, what do I turn on, what do I turn off, that type of thing. But again, understanding the value and the importance of rest, because I think it was Dr. Davis, if I'm not mistaken, that talked about how these things build up, this exclusion, and some of these insults, there's nothing invisible about them. Let's be real clear. They're very visible, right? And so, you know, the punch hits you sometimes. And so again, as Assata said, it was, you know, hey, I need to call somebody. You know, what do you think about this? Right? Like, is it me? Am I taking this too far? Because sometimes, you know, when we're in it every single day and there's 40 hits every single day, you're ready to fight everybody and just blow the whole building up, right? Like, just, I'm not a cusser, but you're ready to say, F all this, let's just blow this thing up, right? And so having the ability to pick up and call one of your girls and say, okay, listen, I am about to really snap, crackle, and pop, and I need somebody to help bring me down for a minute because this is what's happening and this is what's going on. Listen, am I pushing this a little bit too much, or do I need to reel this back in a little bit? So that's how I'm gonna leave it and let everybody else answer, because I'm starting to get a little charged now.
It's all right. It's all right. And, you know, I want to bring to light something. What you said, so many crucial points, but one that stuck out for me is the white women and how they can become allies, right? And what that allyship looks like, because it's not your responsibility to show them, because that's additional added weight. So it's for them to figure out how to be an ally. And to be completely honest with you, how to go from allyship to being a co-conspirator. Because you can be an ally and cheer in the stands, but what are you actually doing to make movement happen? How are you conspiring to make change happen? So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. Chief Defender, I love that. I love it.
I'm glad you love it. It's only going to be there for 2 more weeks, but I'm glad you love it.
The person behind it adds to it, right? So wherever you go, you will still be you. So
thank you.
I'm going to just say,
yes, repeat the question, because Angeline had me tearing over here.
It's powerful, powerful. So in 2018, Julia Carpenter from CNN Money wrote an article entitled "The Emotional Tax Afflicting Women of Color at Work." The article stated that women of color experience an invisible weight that includes exclusion, microaggression, and murmured insults. What advice do you have for other women who may experience this invisible weight and or other types of resistance?
Thank you for that. I do remember. And first of all, I have to say this. I love us, because only us can have these conversations. And it touched us so much that our belly is laughing, because, you know, we share these commonalities. And yes, sometimes you want to punch the air because you're like, I should have said this, I should have said that. When you hear these things, right? One of the things that I had to realize because being a first, you get a lot of punches, a lot of insults. Some of them are right in your face. And I'm sitting in meetings where I'm the head and people are telling me how they're going to tell me what they're going to do. And I'm looking around to the men in the room. I'm like, so you're just going to let them say this? You're not going to say anything here? Because if I say it, then I'm defensive. But if you say it and come to my aid, then it looks like I'm stronger and these people will back down a bit. Because where this comes from, and I had to say this before, why do people think that it's okay to narrate us in the way that they do publicly, loosely, and not have any consequences for that? And so I had to learn how to clap back in a way that made people understand that you're not going to keep coming for me or devaluing me or damaging my professional reputation, because that's all I have. I am not wealthy. I am not, a legacy child. All I have is my substance. And I take that very seriously because I work hard at it. So I had to write letter. When someone said something, I had to follow up in an email. I just want to follow up with your comment here. I took it for, and I used your thing, Dr. Gary, and what I heard you say was this: I want to let you know that that was an incorrect characterization, but here's the realization of what it is that you're looking for. So I wanted to memorialize the type of treatment that I was getting. So then when I said that I needed a board or a whomever that was far more supportive of me, and they were like, what you talking about? Well, here you go, Exhibit A in my folder stacked like this, full of emails that I had to write to make sure that you didn't do the things that you were trying to do, which was tarnish my professional reputation. And I think the more we have, I shouldn't do that alone, right? If people are vouching for me and we are doing things that really service the communities that we are supposed to be delivering service to, why am I the only one saying something about that? Mm-hmm. And, I've always had women come to my aid, but we look like we're just the women that's we're ready to take you on. But men, we need you to step up as well. So I would say, make sure you learn how to fight back in a manner that they know that if they keep doing these things, there are going to be repercussions for them.
Powerful, powerful. Thank you. Thank you. Whew.
Ooh, I wish I was in the audience because I'm getting some good stuff.
Nuggets. This is what I call them, nuggets, all right? Nuggets of wisdom.
Yes, intentional panel, yes.
Dr. Davis,
Ooh.
what say you?
Mm. Well, I agree with all of the above from the other queens. And I will tell you, when I read that article, and I know it specifically deals with the individuals administering this invisible weight as being white men, I'm gonna have to call some brothers onto the carpet and call some sisters onto the carpet as well. And my professional experience, in addition, in particular with law enforcement, I found that invisible weight being experienced by those people who look like me, as well as others. And so it exacerbates the problem. It really does. But I will say the insight that I have for people is sometimes too, you have to be able to walk alone. One of the things that I learned living in Pasadena Young Projects was that no one's coming to save you. People will tell you, oh, you know what they did to you was not right. They didn't promote you, girl, that's not right. You should have been promoted. You should have been this. But meanwhile, back at the ranch, nobody's coming to my defense, except for these sisters on this panel and some other sister friends, you know, that I have, and some other good brothers like Chief Williams and my daddy, but they couldn't really help me. So I'm going to say, be able to walk alone. And one of the things I found that with not just the white men or white women, Black men and Black women, I find that sometimes I tell people, don't conform. Some people have this thing, well, if I can't beat them, I'll join them. You know, I will always stay true to myself and who I am. I will never set aside my values and morals just to, you know, placate to the feelings they want me to have or be who they want me to be. I tell people all day long, I'm just like Muhammad Ali. I'm not afraid to be who I am or what I want to be or what I want to do. That's just me. But one of the most important things about this invisible weight or this emotional tax, sometimes for me, for the past 24 years in my current position in the police department, from my police academy days until right now, I've experienced something. And people would say to me, is it racism? I'm like, no, it's not that. It's just like being sick. And you go to the doctors and you're telling him, her, or other what your symptoms are. And they still can't quite pinpoint what your diagnosis is. And I remember one day coming home from work, driving, and I was listening to Dr. Carol Anderson, a sister from Emory University, and she wrote a book, and I was listening to her lecture on white rage. And when she explained white rage, I had to pull over because I was so full with emotion. About what I experienced and what I am experiencing. And I just said, wow, I just felt like, thank you, God. Just thank you for allowing me to understand what I'm going through, being able to label what it is. And for those who don't know what white rage is, it's that invisible violence, that nonviolence, that, you know, that thing that occurs when there's Black progress, when there's Black advancement. That's the trigger. So you always have to hear these statements about, oh, she has her doctorate where? From Walden University? Where? University of Phoenix? No, Westchester University of Pennsylvania, you know, but, you know, it's just constant day in and day out. So I will tell people sometimes you have to focus on your redirection. You know, when you're not respected at a table, when respect is no longer served, get up and leave that table. It's okay to leave. It's okay to take risks and say, you know what? I'm out. Deuces. See ya. It's okay. But I will tell you, I told you in the past 2 years, the one thing I've been relentless about is my economic liberation. When I have all the paper that I need, I tell folks, you think I'm audacious now? You haven't seen anything. So at the end of the day, I will tell you, it's most important to speak your mind, be respectful, be tactful. When folks treat me a certain way that I know they shouldn't be treating me, I don't yell, I don't scream, I don't curse. I may say something to them like, I don't appreciate you treating me like I don't put a good enough shine on your shoes. So when I tell them something like that, they say, oh, okay. Yeah, that means back up and back away. Leave me alone and let me do the job that I was paid to do, that I want to do, that I love to do. I would hate to leave, my position that I love so much, but sometimes think the grass is a little green on the other side and you have opportunities to do things. So I'm going to take a page out of Chief Defender's book, Someday Soon.
When respect is no longer being served, get up from the table.
Bye-bye.
When respect is no
Take your
longer
talents
being
and go
served,
somewhere where they
go on.
appreciate them.
Be like LeBron James and take him to South Beach.
Go on.
Or
Yes.
start your own.
Do something that you have it in you, right? And the other thing I just want to quickly touch on is white rage and how real and dangerous it is. And on the opposite end of the spectrum is white fragility, which is just as real and just as dangerous.
Yes.
Dr. Assata Thomas, I'm calling you doctor today. I'm claiming it for you. We're gonna have a follow-up.
When the studies come, you can do it for me too, right? So
invisible weight.
Yeah, man, I'm just, the answers that have been given so far, they resonate with me in every way. I just want to piggyback off a few of those sentiments. Jackie, first of all, Dr. Bailey, thank you for your level of transparency and sharing what you did. Chief, I don't know how I'm gonna stop saying that. She gonna still be my chief.
She sure is.
That's all right. Barack Obama's still my president. So.
Chief Bradford-Grey said some things that I want to pick up on it, and she said that when she claps back, some of that is about emailing back and calling people on their stuff. And as she was saying that, I'm like, she's absolutely correct. And then I put it in another perspective. How many hours of my day do I spend having to respond to things when I could be using this time, this talent, this all of who I am to actually support the people that I've been hired to support? And that's the part that's so very frustrating, because I'm constantly in this space of, is this something I let go? Or is this something I need to address? Is this something? But I agree that I am now in this season. I'm not sure if it's having to do with my age, but I'm just in the season where I'm clapping back. You can't just come and say what you want to say and this little side stuff. That we're not doing that. Like I'm finding myself addressing more and more things because I don't want to continue to carry the weight of others. I already have enough weight to carry, this invisible weight that we speak of. So I'm not going to carry your stuff and my stuff. So I'm going to call you on it. This is what it is. And one of the things that I've learned over just the past 2 weeks, incident happened at my job that was purely sexist. And what I came out of that experience with, and Angeline talked about ready to fight and kick, and she's the person who talked me off the ledge. And one of the things that I came out of that is that I have been given delegated authority. I don't have to ask you for permission to walk in my authority, and I will walk in my authority whether you like it or whether you don't. And I think the sad reality of that is that it just doesn't happen with white people. It's balancing that with your own and trying to say with brothers, and I'm saying, we stand in alliance and in solidarity against racism. And now with these same people, I have to stand against in sexism. How does that work? The complexities of that is so vast. We don't have time for that on this call. But to answer the question on how I would advise other women who experience this weight is to be brave enough to name it. You're not crazy. It is happening. You are experiencing it. You have to name it. And whether that's naming it to yourself or naming it to somebody else, it is important that you name it. And once you name it, then you determine how you're going to handle it. But it's very important to name a thing because you can't conquer what you don't confront. And so you have to name that thing and then use your village to be able to work through it, so that you stay in a place of constant progression and stay in a place of constantly being well and healed. So name it is what I would say to other women. Name that thing. You're not crazy. It's happening. Name it.
I love it. Naming it and linking it to the attribute so that when it shows up again, right, you know how to better handle it the next time around. I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so I want to move on to another question. It's a little shorter, so it should be easier to remember, but I will repeat it again as well. What are some factors attributed to the lack of a post-racial society? Because we are still in it, right? Heavily, deep. And we are reminded all day, every day of just how heavy a situation it is, right? So what are your insights around factors attributed to the lack of us being beyond? Let's start with Assata Thomas.
I was ready too, like,
All of us sitting here like,
like what?
somebody
Ooh,
better
who
say
wants
something.
that?
I do.
So I would say we have to first recognize that we aren't in a post-racial society. That's, I keep talking about acknowledging things. The first one is to acknowledge that. And quiet as it's kept, folks, since we've had our presidents, Mr. Barack Obama, folks think that we're now in a post-racial society. And I'm pushing back against that hard, like absolutely not. And if the president after him did not prove that point, then we are in a sad space. So I would say that the first factor is to realize that indeed we are very much living in a society that is not post-racial, and that we have to unite. It's wonderful to have these individual accomplishments, experience, education, and be featured, as Chief Defender said earlier, but it is not until we are united and keep this constant pressure, this constant force that we are not going away. And we are calling for equity, not equality, equity. We are calling for equity for all of us Black and brown persons who continue to experience these macroaggressions, whose sons and husbands and daughters and sisters are being murdered. And we now have the victim on trial. What is that? So unless and until we first as a nation acknowledge that we are and continue to be in a racial society and begin to have these hard conversations and dialogues with white people, with other Black people, we're going to continue on this hamster wheel. And yes, some of us have ascended and exceeded and done these great and wonderful things, but the reality is that that is not the majority of the population. So we have to stop focusing on the minority that have and begin to impact our children, our grandchildren, what is happening and the power that our ancestors, the legacy that was left for us. And to move from an individualistic, I have mine, this is my car, this is my white picket fence, I have my 2.5 children, I pertain this amount, and this is it, and this is all. Absolutely not. We have to be accountable to each other. And I feel like I'm preaching, so I'm gonna step down and let somebody else talk.
Yeah. All right, that's all right. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Davis.
You sure you want my answer?
Yes, bring it on. Bring it on. That's why we're here.
Well, I will say this much. In thinking what Assata, Ms. Thomas just said about being united, I can appreciate that. But I'll be quite honest. One of the biggest attributing factors to the lack of us having a post-racial society, and I'm going to take a page out of my man, Dr. Claude Anderson's book. He wrote a book called Black Labor, White Wealth, and he talks about the maldistribution of wealth. And that seems to be the biggest problem, the maldistribution of wealth. When you look at an article in 2020, the Washington Post wrote an article about the Black-white economic divide is as wide now as it has been even back in 1968. So Black people must shift their focus on correcting the maldistribution of wealth. And while I do agree that we need diversity and equity and inclusion, for me and me building on Black generational wealth, it has to start there. Because think about it this way. We have politicians who will put policies in place that will help, let's say, Black people and brown people, and then you'll have another regime to come right back in and reverse course on everything that those individuals have done. Listen, it's all about the money. Whether you want to call it reparations, what have you, it's the maldistribution of wealth that has really created this problem of a post-racial society. In addition, politics. Who gets what, when they get it, how they get it. This society is happy with the social construct of the have and the have-nots. They're okay with that. And also deflection. When it's time to address specific needs of Black people in particular, we deflect to some other issues. So for me, the biggest focus of wealth and rebuilding the wealth. And here's why I want to say in the last second here. It's nice that we want to put Black people in positions, I know I'm gonna get in trouble, but I'm just gonna say it anyway. When you read the book, Black Labor, White Wealth, Dr. Claude Anderson talks about how in 1964, we had 103 Black elected officials. And in 1992, 28 years later, there were 8,000 Black elected officials. When you look at the unemployment rate for Blacks in 1964, it was 10%. And if you look at the unemployment rate for Blacks in 1992 with 8,000 Black politicians, it was 14%. So here you have more diversity, maybe more inclusion, more equity, what have you. And it seemed like we were still not doing as best as we should have been doing as a people. And it all goes back to the money. The money.
Thank you.
So we have to work on that maldistribution of wealth.
Thank you. Message received. Chief, talk to us. Your thoughts.
I'm going to take everything that both Assata and Jackie said, because they're both very core principles as to why. But let me say this, because I hear this phrase, post-racial society. And I don't want to live in a post-racial society where we don't see colors, because I want to show up in all my essence, because I feel like, without race and differences, we just have a salad with lettuce. It's the cucumbers, the tomatoes, the carrots that make up all the accoutrement, make the salad look great. So I want us to have race differentiators. However, I do not want to be in a racist society any longer. And I am no longer going to accept the fact that we have to be in one, or at least I'm going to do what I can for the continuum of things that the legacy has left me to fight for. But what Jackie said is critical, because even with the pursuit of higher education, college degrees simply do not translate into the same job opportunities, earnings, or leadership advancement opportunities for Black women. And so, there are many great organizations right now that are trying to get women in STEM and all these other male-dominated areas. However, we have to work to disrupt the institutional and systemic racism for Black women. We have to make sure that the sexism in these sectors are eradicated. Because what we will have is, like we said, the exception, not the norm, where people get pushed into these careers and they're tokenized, or they're belittled, or they're pushed out. So this increases the issue that Black women don't need or can't handle being in the same space as men, or having the same economic opportunities and advancements. I mean, think about it. Without intergenerational transfers of wealth, Black women can't go to school without taking out more student loan debts and adding on to that inability to reach that financial independence that Jackie is talking about. Now, I know this sister. I've known her since the 90s. Let me tell you something. She's been on this wealth kick for a very long time. And I know I was way too immature to follow her plan, because it was never eat out and eat everything in your house. And I'm like, no, I need to eat out. But now in my later years, what she's saying is actually very liberating. And it does allow us to do things like leave a place when you're not valuing my worth, and show you that I can go somewhere else. And I'm not afraid to leave this area. We have to be able to show people that when you devalue us, you devalue opportunities. But we've never married those things. It's always been, I'm just using this as an example, Keir's leaving. Okay, well, what does that mean? How do people ask why, and what should people be expecting those places to do so that the next person doesn't experience these things? So it's beyond just telling our stories. It's what are we going to do to hold these institutions accountable who do not value us, who do not make sure that you're not just talking about diversity and having me as a face, but what are you going to do to invest in me so that I have the same opportunity access opportunities and access to wealth to help my families. We're only going to come into a post-racist society when we are able to get more of the pie or more of the power to make decisions.
Thank you. Thank you. Nail hit. Angie, take us home. Take us home with this question. Take us home.
So ditto to my sisters, right? But I want to say this too. In order to live in a post-racial or post-racist society, we as Black folks got to be seen as human. That's number one, right? Nobody values us or sees us as human beings. I also think that, again, dittoing everything that has been said, I know one of the things that I'm working to do, and I love this whole conversation because these are the conversations that are necessary and needed. And so I think that also having what I call critical village consciousness conversations in our own spaces with our village, because as I've heard as well too, a lot of them sometimes add to our own problems. And I'm starting to even question this whole word diversity. Because for me, it's just like, I forgot the other word, but it's just like where it goes back where white women are still the ones that are benefiting from this diversity. And I'm watching this happen, especially in education, where these white women or anything other than Black at times, right? So it's this flip sometimes where anything other than Black now also becomes categorized as diversity. So as the chief said, it's like and of course, as Dr. Davis said, economics, but it's also building these structures, learning how to strategize within our village, learning how to strategize within our communities to really take back what we built for free, right? And as Assata said, I remember, what is it? I am my ancestors' greatest legacy or something like that. All the t-shirts that went out. But yes, in many ways, I am. But we're not looking to build just the I, we're looking to build the we. And until we understand that, until the we reaches a certain point, it doesn't really mean too much if the I isn't working on behalf of the we, right? Because a lot of times we get in these positions and the I is all about the I. Forget all the rest of us that might be sitting at the table. And I want to say this one last thing, because I'm tired of people saying, oh, you need a seat at the table. If you're not going to get at the table and open your mouth, don't even sign up to be at the table. I am so sick of hearing, oh, if they don't ask you to come to the table, bring your own lawn chair. No, take your lawn chair and put it in the backyard and go sit down. Because if you are not going to open your mouth when you get to those spaces, then we don't need you at the table, and you and your chair could stay at home. So that's where I'm gonna leave it.
Thank you for putting it nicely, because I know you really wanted to. We appreciate you, and message was well received. I'm gonna take moderator privilege and do a slight adjustment at this time, right? Because I'm watching the clock and we have about 17 minutes, but there's also a closing. So I want to do a slight shift and go to 2 Zoom questions where I'm going to split it up and ask 2 of you to answer and another 2 to answer another question. Fair? Works? Okay, great. So this question I'm posing will go to Keir and Angie. What do you hope to see from this administration when addressing racial injustice? Let's start with the chief.
Thank you. So I hope to see far more than lip service. You know, one of the things that I say or we're looking at is how Biden wanted to put more equity into everything that government did. And then 2 weeks later, I see an article that people were fired for smoking marijuana in the past. And I'm saying to myself, now, if we're talking about equity, if we're talking about the ability to understand society and the nature of society, and you are making sure that people don't have opportunities for something so minor that had nothing to do with any kind of public safety or recklessness, because remember, people are getting rich off of selling marijuana, not us, others. why are you infusing those same culturally racist ideals into opportunities to work in your administration to do just what you said? Equity, build equity. Equity doesn't mean having Black faces. It is dismantling these system structures, such as these voter laws that are Jim Crows popping up, doing the things necessary to make sure that our fundamental entitlements, and I'm not saying rights, I'm saying entitlements, are not dismantled or not disrupted, and are even more robust and abundant, and adding more of an affirmative action piece, because we've been discriminated, we've been left out, we've been marginalized, and we've been narrated and unfairly characterized, so that we cannot advance to critical roles in government that can provide so much for so many people that we understand, but many others don't. So I just want to see some real practical practice in place. Don't tell me don't give me speeches. Don't give me a policy. Show me the progress by what you do and how you go about it and how you advance opportunities to talk about things in different spaces where you weren't. Remember, Barack Obama started the conversation about prisons by visiting a prison. Sitting down, rolling up his sleeve, talking to those individual human beings in that cell, showing you have value. It's about how you show up a lot. That speaks volume. So I want to see this. Don't give me a podium. Show me. Come visit me in my hood. Go visit where Jackie was raised. Go visit somewhere else. That's what I'd like to see.
Love it. The fundamental entitlement. Love it. Thank you, Angeline.
Again, ditto. I don't really have to spend a lot on here. I don't even know really where to start, but really, like, where the chief, what she just said, show up and let us see who you are, right? I think about this whole defund the police and how he didn't like what that meant, or he didn't understand how, all of these different things, right? Well, if you didn't fully understand it, and the Black people you had around you didn't fully understand it, then maybe if you come to our neck of the woods, we can help you understand what exactly we're talking about. And so I'm not, it's really not that simple. And guess what? He don't got to come to Philly. He live in Delaware. He can go 6 miles down the road and he got his own Philly type thing going on right there. So I also want to say that it is also incumbent upon us, again, unfortunately, but it's the reality of it, to push and to unite and to make sure that we are getting what we want, getting what we're asking for. I was having this conversation a few days ago, I think, with Assata, even looking at how I'm doing some organizing in another city. We don't ask for much. We don't, when it's time for them to run for office, what are you going to do? And then they already got their agenda. They already know the buzzwords that we need to hear. And then once they say those buzzwords, oh, okay, I'm backing them. But I think, and this is what I'm working on right now, as I'm looking at this one mayor who's 2 years in, or 2.5 years in, and it's time. And so I asked the people the other day, I said, how about we write a contract? You don't like what he's doing now. He's going to come and ask for your vote, and he's going to go to all the concerned pastors, and he's going to go to, we know the programming of how this stuff works. So if he's not doing what you want right now, how about you put together a contract, and then you in housing put together a contract, and you over here in health put together a contract. We all come together and say, you got 2 years left. This is what we want to see. And if we want to see, if we don't see it, don't come ask for our vote. Don't even bother calling or come knocking on our door, because you're not going to get it. And not wait till after he gets back in office to then allow him to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So I think our strategy also has to sometimes change, or it's time for our strategies to change in regard to holding people accountable.
Dr. Knight, can I say something really piggyback on what she said? That issue of defund the police is really critical. Whether you agree with it or not, come understand it. And I'm so tired of people at the highest level spouting off why people shouldn't be saying anything like that. It's almost as if the slogan is worse than the actions that created the slogan, which is all the racist, violent, extremely violent, they killing us, acts by police, but that's being swept under the rug because you're saying defund the police. Well, come figure out why people are saying that, and stop with your bully pulpit of telling us what we should and should not be saying. And I love that. Thank you for saying that.
Yes, yes. And so even with that whole defund the police, if you understand it, then you will also understand how equity is built in all the other areas that we need it to be built in. So we know why you don't want to understand it. But again, we have to come together and push and force that. One more thing on our plates to do, unfortunately, but that's the reality of it. And the young people are ready. So that's the beauty of it as well.
They are. Yes, they are. They're definitely more ready than we were. Well, let me speak for myself, than I was at their age. So this will be the last question that I will pose, and this will be directed to both Assata Thomas and to Dr. Davis. What would you tell a young adolescent Black female with a new criminal record for encouragement? Let's start with you, Dr. Davis.
I would tell them that although I know that they are going to be faced with some adversities, these challenges, use those challenges for change. It's not the end of the world. You can still be as phenomenal as you want to be. In fact, I will share with you briefly, on LinkedIn, I actually found an advertisement for a new line of children's undergarments by a young lady whose name is Dr. Yolanda Flournoy Perkins. And she explained that she had to reinvent her life because she spent some time in prison. And she actually launched her own business of underwear for children called Blended Ones, or Undies by Blended One. And so with that, I would tell this young woman to look for people like the Dr. Flournoy Perkins, to say that life is not over when you've made a mistake, that you can move forward. Share your story with other individuals to help prevent them from making the same mistakes that you may have made, and being able to help them not make the same mistakes. The biggest thing, forgive yourself. Don't allow anyone to have you believe that that one mistake that you've made be the mistake that you have to live with, and that your life cannot be fulfilled, and that you cannot live out your true potential. So those are some of the things that I would actually say, but also to work to try and make some of the necessary changes that need to be made within systems, because sometimes we know that we get the raw deal. And if all else fails, I'm going to tell her to call Chief Defender Keir Bradford. Oh, Chief Keir.
And thank you for sharing that. When you make mention of reinventing, reimagining, right? All is not lost. I think of Kemba Smith, right?
Yes.
And who happens to be a classmate of mine from Hampton.
Kemba Smith, proud of you.
She turned that around and made it a platform to really educate and make change as a result of her experiences.
Turn the pain into purpose.
There you go. Absolutely. Very well said. Assata, talk to us. What would you tell that young female who may have made a mistake and, she thinks it's the end, right? What would your conversation be with her?
My conversation would first be, I am she. So you are witnessing someone who made a mistake and use that pain as a platform to purpose. And that sounds kind of cute and kind of fancy, but there was a process that was involved with that pain. And I would also say, as Brian Stevenson says, you are more than the worst mistake that you've made. And so I would say to forgive yourself. I would say that as part of your life journey, that include that as a piece of your life journey. I would say that you can reach out to me at athomas@fight.org as we support women who have been impacted by mass incarceration as well. I am happy to speak with you about what that looks like. You get to design your own future. And so you don't allow this stigma, what has happened to you, to define where you go from here, because we can use it to cover, we can use it to hide away, and we can stand in fear. And I lastly want to say that secrets revealed lose their power. I was in secret for so many years, and People had so much power over me. But until I can open my mouth and speak my truth, you don't get to tell my narrative. This is mine. I own it and I get to tell it. And so that's what I would say to this young lady. That is your narrative, and you get to decide the ending of your story. The beginning is not the end. The middle is not the end. It's what you are doing. So go through what you got to go through, feel what you have to feel, but look at me. I am a living example that you can move beyond a felony conviction to live and thrive and be all that you were called and purposed to be.
Thank you. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for speaking your truth. At this time, on behalf of the participants watching and myself, I sincerely thank you for pouring into us for this last hour and a half. Your sheer brilliance, your wisdom, your strength, your power, we are all leaving this space so much better than we entered. I am forever grateful for the invite to even be a part of this experience and to engage with you all firsthand. And I'll just close by, saying or, reaffirming the very same words that Assata Thomas used to open this session. Black queens, you are dope. You are powerful. You are amazing. You are resilient. Your tenacity speaks for itself. You're fearless, and your purpose-driven cannot be overlooked or outshined because you are walking in your power and your purpose. And for that, I thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Dr.
you,
Knight.
Thank you.
Keir.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
You're so
Because-
welcome. I just want to close out. I want to thank you, ladies, my friends, my colleagues, part of my village, for accepting this on today. I'm so appreciative. I thank you for all of who you are. I thank you for supporting me on today with this and for pouring out. Dr. Knight, you did an amazing job. Your allyship is certainly felt. Your respect for Black women was certainly felt and appreciated. And I want to say thank you so much for deciding to join us as well and to moderate this panel. I want to give a final shout out. Y'all were talking about men in your life. I have to shout out my brother, Mark Knight, who was a phenomenal advocate in my life. And I just want to shout him out. And I'm going to close with a quote as I began with one. I wish you power that equals your intelligence and your strength. I wish you success that equals your talent and determination. And I wish you faith, Dr. Betty Shabazz. Be well. This was live streamed on Facebook. It will be on our Facebook page, the Institute for Community Justice. Be well. Thank you all for joining us today. Bye-bye. Thank you, ladies.
Love you.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
Assata, you know I'm always here. And I say this, while I'm leaving the Defender, I am not leaving you. So we will still be in good connection. Thank you for being you. You are just an awesome person. And I really do appreciate you inviting me to speak on this panel with these other women who, Angeline, oh my God, you just gave me some heartfelt laughter that I need. And it was good laughter, not laughter because it was funny, but laughter because it was real. And Jackie, you know, we've been down since the 1990s. So we're going to continue to build.
I love you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Dr. Knight, we gotta follow up with you. You made me feel like I was on top of the world.
And it's all from the heart. Like this is, y'all are, listen, it's real.
Excuse me, can we get an encore?
One day,
We're gonna
right?
take two, but I can get all of you together again. We're gonna do another addendum. We're gonna do another session. I'm feeling that in my bones. So we're gonna do that.
All right.
Thank y'all
All
so
right.
much. Be well,
Thank
y'all.
you.
Have a great day.
Take care.
Take care.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Peace, everybody.
Peace.